What I can do is use this pot with, I can't remember what the shape is of them. What the shape of that? Tell you what, didn't know that. Welcome everyone to Tunnel Barn Farm. Now today I'm going to be showing you how to get the most from your peg and fishing across to the far shelf. So what I mean by this is we're on a typical snake lake today, or an extension pool, and what I'm going to show you is how to get the most out of that far bank shelf this winter. It's probably one of the most consistent lines throughout the winter months, and there's a few things you can do to keep them bites ticking, coming along and catching more fish. Now there's a few key aspects to targeting the far margin, so on the across line as we like to call it. So first of all is location's key. So instead of just coming to the peg, plumbing up straight across into the reeds, just thinking that looks nice, it's not all about that for F1s in winter, it's about depth. That's a crucial thing. Now, one thing over the years I learned, in between 3 and 4 foot is an ideal depth for these winter months. When the fish are feeding obviously a lot more aggressively, you can push further up, but to get them consistent bites throughout the winter months, it's middle of the week before Christmas now, so the fishing's going to be a little bit slower, but we can still catch them. So 3 to 4 foot is going to be the ideal depth I'm looking for. So these are 2 rigs I've set up today. So now I've got my 4 foot rig. Now first of all, the short stops, very important for F1 fishing. You can lift the fish up, they come a lot closer. Now in the winter months, sometimes the fish hook holes are a lot lighter than they are in the summer months, so you've got to be careful. So with that, if the fish pop up close to me, I can net them nice and quickly, nice and efficient. Now elastic, I've gone really soft now. Now when the fish are feeding aggressively, I feel like you can get away with a 9s or 10s holler, but when they're fishing it like it is and say 30 to 40 pounds, a really good weight, I feel like I've got a 7s holler in. Now here at Tunnel Barn there is a few carp, but they feel like they're shut down for the winter now, so you can may hook and odd them, but they'll be a bit more docile than they would be in the summer months, so you can get away with it. So a nice 7 holler, you can catch fish up from like 4 ounces to 3-4 pound on it, nice and soft. Now because I'm fishing 4 foot, I've just got a 4x12 F1 maggot. Now there's a little bit of side wind today, it's just off my left shoulder, so I just want a bit of stability there. So I've just got a 4x12 and a little back shot above it. I can move it around where I need to, and the shotting pattern's dead simple, just a strung bulk, probably about 2 inch apart down the bottom end of the rig. And then because I'm fishing across, I like a 4-inch hook length. Just make sure that last shot's nice and close to the hook, but not too close like a 3 or a 2-inch hook length. If I had a 6-inch hook length, I just feel like it's a little bit further away, and I don't need the effectiveness of that last little bit of the fall. So 4 inches is perfect for a cross. Now the 3 foot rig just mimics the rig I've just talked about, but I've got a 4x10 on, a little bit shallower water, a little bit lighter float I can get away with, not as much shot down the line, and then literally back shot, same elastic, and then the shotting pattern's exactly the same again, and I've got same again, 4-inch hook length. Now the hook length, it's really important to match your hook to what hook bait you're fishing. So I'm going to be fishing a lot of double maggot today, just as a nice target hook bait, but if the fishing's a lot harder and you feel like you're feeding a lot less bait, which I'll talk about, a 20 is ideal. So I've got just a pre-tied SFL in 011 to an 18 on these rigs, but I have got some 20s in case the fishing's a little bit more difficult and I want to slip a single maggot on. Now don't get me wrong, you can slip a single maggot on an 18, but I just like to match the hook to the hook bait. Now I was speaking before about elastic choice. I've gone for a 7s holler just because it's nice and soft, and this is ideal for when the fishing's a little bit tough and you want to get everything in, take your time. But if the fishing gets a little bit better, or we get a warm week and you see the results going up and up and up, so say like 50 pounds upwards, then you can step your elastic up to say like a 9 or a 10. To get that question, what was the ideal elastic for winter F1 fishing? Well, I feel I dictate what elastic to how the fish are feeding. So if the fish are feeding aggressively, you can step your elastic up a little bit. If the fish are feeding difficult, just come out of a period where it's been iced over, or it's a colder day, we've had a few frosts, then just go a little bit safer on the elastic, a little bit lighter, make sure you can get everything in. So We talked about the rigs, 3 foot, 4 foot, exactly the same, just 2 different sizes, just depending on where they are. So the 3 foot's 4x10 and the 4 foot's 4x12. So what we're going to do is get stuck into plumb up, and what I look for, trying to find that far shelf on the across line. Now we're going to get stuck into plumbing up. Now this is really important to make sure you're nice and accurate, you understand what the bottom you're fishing's on like, and you're fishing in a nice area. Now what I mean by that is I want a nice bit on the bottom. If I can find a flat spot, perfect, but I need to find a nice shelf where it's just gradual. I don't want a sharp, steep shelf if I can help it. Now what I mean by that is I don't want to go out there and find just a sharp bank. It's going to make it hard for me to fish, so that's the reason why. So basically I put a 30 gram plummet on. I like it nice and heavy so I can feel what the bottom's like, and the thing is it's not going to fall in the silt across there because all the silt's going to be in the central track, so we're going to be in a nice hard bottom, so that's why it's an ideal area to fish in the winter months. Now all snake lakes are different, varies from like 13 metres to 16 metres wide. Now today it's probably going to be about 14.5 where we're fishing, but because I've got my short kit, my short free, and I've just had to put my 16 metre piece in, so it's not too far. Probably what you're looking to fish in the situation of like winter style fishing. Now one thing that's really important is to get in line with the marker. So there's a bit of a charcoal burnt tree on the far bank, so I'm going to mark up in line with that, and I'm just going to drop it in at 13 metres and just see where my float hits the bottom, or the plummet hits the bottom. So that's obviously a lot deeper there, so I'm just going to go another half a section. Once again, keep it in that line. Again there, I'm still in the really deep water, so edge it up a bit, so say if I was holding it on my 16 metre section. So there, it's starting to come up now. It's probably a little bit down my elastic choice. So there, it's just stepped up a little bit. Now if I went further, so it's the gradual slope there. So it's coming down. There's a slight drop off. So I'm on a little plateau there of the shelf. So that's where I want to be ideally setting up my 4 foot rig, just in line with that. Now, one thing that's really important, if I was down halfway down my section, I'd just stick a bit of tape on. But because I'm at the end of my pole, literally that is the point of every time. I'm going to put my end of my pole to end of my knee, and then when I get fishing I'll explain what I mean by how I go sorting out my peg. So that's where I'm going to be fishing. Just make sure I go left and right so I'm not on any humps. Yep, same that way. Obviously it's naturally going to go a bit deeper because if I shoved it a bit further it'd be the same depth. Look, now when I'm plumbing up, I'm looking for the bottom of the body of the float to be out the water like that. That just makes sure I've got enough bait, enough line on the bottom to get a bite. I'm not drifting off the bottom, it's not just touching the bottom. I want to probably an inch, half an inch on the bottom, so when them fish take the bait, they'll suck it in, and then obviously because you're fishing a little 4-inch hook length, you're going to get a nice clean response off it. Slow it down. So that's my 4 foot line, so end of my 14 section piece on the end of my knee. So the 3 foot line is obviously going to be a little bit further across. Now I have got some reeds across to the left there, but I do feel like for a starting point I'm just going to fish right in front of me. Ooh, one bit. Just right in front of me, just past that line, so I know where I am. So you don't need to confuse yourself, just literally get out to your mark. Now what I'm going to do is get to my mark where I've just plumbed up. Obviously you'll see it probably just stop before there, so obviously that's my 4 foot line, so push it a little bit further. See, it's a little bit deeper there, a little bit further again, just underneath the surface, so that last little bit, 16 there to there. Got the same approach there. Now if you can lean a bit forward, just see what it goes like there. So it's like that there is not changing much at all. Just bumped a fish then. Not much changing much at all. So if we go to the left, it's the same. And go to the right, it's the same. So that's what I'm looking for all the time around there. So if I put my dolly butt on, I can go tight to the reeds if I need to, but I don't feel like I need to. That there will be a perfect ideal distance to try and catch them. So that's me plumbing up. Nice and simple, just up that shelf. That's how I look for it. I like to start, see where the deep water starts. Now, in match conditions, you probably have a deep water line as well. So if you do come to your peg and you pleasure fishing, and you do want to plumb up a deep water line, do that first, and then you work your way up the shelf, and you can find out where they are then, where the shelves are, because they're different in all sorts of venues across the country. They can be like started 6 meters and start to come up. You just want to be on a nice shelf. We've got a nice perfect line across in 3 foot there. Now, one thing that's ideal, it's obviously down to the peg you draw. We've got a little bit of cover just up that 3 foot, so lakes in the winter get really, really clear because the fish stop moving around as much, stop colouring the lakes up, so they get clear. So a little bit of cover like a reed bed, big pampas, trees, stuff like that in the water. They're ideal things to fish up to because it gives you the best chance of holding a few fish, not spooking them. So that's why it's really important, if it's a really hard day, to have a nice soft elastics on a strike, fish not splashing around the top and scaring all the others. So just a few little tricks that can catch a few more fish. So we'll move on to bait now and see what we've got. Now, bait's dead simple. One of the most consistent baits in the winter for F1s is fishing with maggots. Now, this is because in the depths of the freezing cold, when it gets warmer as well. Now, you may think, well, why have you not brought some pellets? Now, the last thing I want to do is start messing around, feeding all different things. Now, if I feel like the fishing was going to be really, really good, it's been warm for a few weeks, say like late February, early March, then I would look to start on pellets. But because we're in the depths of December, we've got some maggots. Now, one thing that's a key little trick we're doing over the years trying to catch some F1s is some Super Crush Expander. Nice, light and fluffy, dead attractive. You only feed small little pea-sized pieces, just drop it in and it can kickstart your peg. Now, venues across the country stock a lot of fish in the winter time, so I know here at Tunnel Bar they might have put a few in this year, but they put a lot of fish in last year and they're still buzzing around. So a lot of smaller fish love that Super Crush as well as the bigger fish, so it's just a good way to kickstart your peg. So what I mean by that is I literally just go in, give it like a pinch and give it like, you can mould it into a hard ball if you feel like you need to. It'll break down on the bottom and just be nice and attractive. Now, you may think, well, how have you gone about doing that? Literally, probably a 2 kilo bag will last you a fair long way, maybe all winter. Now, that literally there is just 100 mil of bait. So what I like to do night before or when I get to my peg is fill my 100 mil cup up with some ground bait. Just make sure I've got it level. The top gets flying everywhere. Make sure I've got it level. Drop it in my tub, then get 100 mil of water straight in, mix it round so it goes like sort of like a paste. But I'm doing this because I want as much water in as I can. I don't want to be messing around on the bank when my fingers are cold, just topping it up, trying to get it right. I know that's the right way of doing it. 100 mil of bait, 100 mil of water, leave it, let it settle for like 30-40 minutes, give it a riddle, and you've got a nice ground bait there. When I squeeze it into a little ball, it's going to sink all to the bottom and be nice and attractive for you. Now, the bait as well, maggots, I just like red maggots for the winter time. Just feel like I don't want different style of maggots, I don't want like bronze, whites, all different colours, because I just feel if I'm feeding that colour, the fish are going to pick it up. They're going to pick it up. The red on the bottom, it's going to be nice and attractive and selective. If I've got, say, different colours on the bottom, some days I might pick up a different colour. I might have a wrong one on the hook. And with winter fishing, it's a lot of like time scale. The fish don't feed all day. They feed in certain periods, so making the most of that time when they do feed is crucial. Now, nice big maggots is ideal as well. Just make sure you look after them. Give them a bit of maize. They're all nice and soft. Ideal. So the last thing before we get the fishing done is how am I about going to go feeding this? I'm going to feed with a big pot, I'm going to go and get the catapult out, or I'm going to go fish with the kinder pots. Now, kinder pots are going to be the way today, so we're not going to be fishing with the big pot. Now, the reason behind this is because the fish are naturally on the far bank, so they'll naturally want to be across on the far line. So what I mean by this is when you get to your peg, because it's so clear, the fish will be down the middle of the track, and the easiest place to catch him is that far shelf. so you don't need to start a big pot and draw the fish in. You can literally, say after you finish your dobbing or you feel like it's a feeding day, you can literally go in and kick your session off. Now, size of the pots and how you feed is really important. So my natural go-to size pot when I'm feeding like 10 to 15 maggots, just a little one with a small open hole. It releases the bait nice and quick, gets it in my peg, I can set my trap and my fish in straight away. I can also feed that little size nugget of crush there in there as well, so I can feed, pot it up there, drop it in, I can plop that in, I can get a few bites doing that way. Now I've just got a bigger size just because if you feel like you need to feed a little bit more bait, you can feed like 20 to 30 maggots in that one, as that one's 10 to 15. May sound petty, but just like that bit bigger bait, if the fishing's really good and you feel like you can get a few bites, say later on in the day, that's perfect. So now, when the fishing's harder, and I might only want to tap like 5 or 6 in, and then maybe tap some more in, instead of shipping back, what I can do is use this pot with, I can't remember what the shape is of them. What the shape of that? Don't know. Hexagon. 5 sides. 5 sides, that hexagon.
A few moments later.
What shape has 5 sides?
Pentagon.
Pentagon? Tell you what, didn't know that.
Are you serious?
Now we've got the pot with the lid on it, it's got pentagon size holes. So what you can do is I can drop, say, 10 to 15 maggots in there and I can get 2 or 3 feeds out of that. So if I feel like the fish are watching it, come down into the peg, the water's clear, and I'm getting a few bites that way, it just gives me a different way of feeding. Instead of just feeding one hit and trying to catch it, which is perfect when there's a few fish in the peg, but when you're trying to draw some fish in the peg, because we're not loose feeding, because I feel I want my bait tight, nice and accurate on like a drain pipe sort of thing, you can put 10 to 15 in that medium pot with a pentagon lid, literally sprinkle them in, tap 5 or 6 in, fish for say 3 or 4 minutes. Instead of shipping back and doing it all again, you can literally tap it in. Now this is really good when you're just trying to search your peg as well, trying to get a response. So if you've put your rig in the water, you've been sat there for 3 minutes and you tap some bait over the top, you sometimes get a little indication and sign. It gives you the confidence to fish in the peg. So they've all got different lids, different sizes, and they've all got the different purpose. So that's what we're going to be using today. Probably going to be using that one and maybe a few sprinkling, but I don't think we'll be on the big one, but we never know. The fishing might be good. It is milder than it has been today, so hopefully we'll catch a few fish doing it. But nice and simple approach for feeding. No catapults, no big pots, just kinder pots, a few different lids, and get that bait in. Oh yeah. Right, so we just started fishing, and what I've done is put a little nugget of crush in and about 10 maggots and just went straight across. We've nailed a nice big golden crumpet one, lovely one. So I'll show you how I go about trying to catch him on that shelf. So first of all, I just thought, with being a little bit milder, just gonna have a look in 3 foot to start with. Now this is because I just feel like this is where the fish will naturally want to be, just because it's a little bit warmer, the wind's not as cold as it normally is. So that's one thing to look out for when you're doing it. So all I'm literally doing, hooking 2 maggots on, like that. So it's a lot of hook point exposed. Now at first initial I fed like a tiny nugget of crush, so like just enough so it come out my pot sort of size, but dropped it. But I'm not going to do that now. We've had a few chucks. I'm literally going to count in my hands probably 8 to 10 maggots, literally drop them in, and that's how we're going to go about. Now one little tip, there's little vents on the back of the pot. You literally just dunk your pot under the water and it just sucks them maggots down, so it makes it a lot easier to try and ship them out this long way. We're obviously fishing 14.5 to nearly 16 metres, so a long way, and just take your time to make sure if you roll the set up so it just glides across your knee. Now the first thing I'm thinking is when I get to my marks, I'm going to feed my bait. Now I'm not going to feed it from a height, I'm just going to feed it about 6 inches off the water. So yep, I'm set up now, I'm nice and settled in where I want to fish. Get to about 6 inches off the water, just tap my bait in where it needs to be. Now what I'm going to do is going to lift my rig to the side and lay it back over where the maggots are. Now I don't want to flip my rig past, because if I was on a steeper shelf it'd catch on the far shelf, and it naturally the rig wouldn't be, oh, bite on the drop then. See, that didn't go in right, so I'm going to put it in right again, slow it down. Now if I flicked it past, it would catch on the shelf, so ideally I want to flick it to the side or just below, so like 4 o'clock, so it comes in and lands on the shelf. Now one thing that's really important, because you've got your carbon stem float on, if there's a few fish in your peg, like them little stockies can be as well, is to keep your rig still. So that back shot's really important. Just try and keep your float still. A bit of a gust of wind then. There you go, there's a bite on the settle then. Ooh. See that elastic there? There might be a little bit smaller fish, but because I'm coming back away, that fish has just swum around. It's not come to the top and flapped about. Oh, it's come off about everything. Just check that. Yeah, maggot fold over the point. Put 2 fresh maggots on. They're both in the fin end, so I get the most hook point I can showing. Now this time, just going to put a few more maggots in, just say like 15, just to try and pin these fish down to the bottom. I feel like there's an odd fish there, just because they can go a bit crazy with that ground bait going in at first, and then they settle down. So all the time I'm thinking, how much bait am I putting in? I'm not just filling my pot up and whacking it all in, thinking, right, I put 10 in that time and I got a few signs, so maybe I need a little bit more bait because there's a few more fish in a thought there. So same process applies again. Literally get to your mark, tap your bait in, spin your pot back over, lay it out to the side, push him up. So now there's no wind now, so I'm just going to lock my pole in place, watch my rig arc over, sharp dink on the way in. See the indication straight away then. See that floats just, that's hit the bottom now. So now we're fishing. So see how that tiny little change, a little bit more maggots, just stops that first initial burst of the fish flying through your peg. Now this is one thing of F1 fishing, the fish sort of like tell you how they're responding, so you can read your bristle of what's going on. See, that's perfect then. Perfect, nice and still, like 30-40 seconds straight away. That's what we're looking for. Like, don't get me wrong, the fishing will be a little bit better than it would be in the normal winter months today, just because the way it is weather-wise. But see that nice soft elastic coming out 2 or 3 foot, the tiny little 4-ounce stocky. So this is the thing, I could go in next chuck and catch a 4-pound F1, but my gear's balanced for both, so just making the most of just putting some fish in the net and getting bites. So again, make sure everything's right, so I'm hooking my bait right, making sure there's enough exposed hook point. That there, I'm going to feed a bit more again, dunk my pot so it traps it all. Just one thing, it's really important just to take your time when you are doing this. Just make sure it's locked in your knee. And get to the end of your mark there. Spin the pot over. Now, you may ask why I'm not dropping it from a massive height. Well, I just want to keep everything in a tight line and in my pegs, like a drain pipe sort of effect. So, last thing I want to do is sort of like just throw my bait from like 4 or 5 foot in the air so it spreads out, makes loads of noise, gets the fish going crazy in my peg. I just want to sneak it in when there's some fish there. So obviously there's a few fish come to that little nugget of crush straight away, and a few fish feeding in 3 foot. Oh, one just top right of my float. A sign then. Just think, be nice and patient, just read your float, what's going on. If you're getting loads of signs and not hooking the fish, or you're foul looking fish, you need to just change your feeding up and maybe your depth. Now, we're at the highest point we can be. Like I said, it's a bit warmer today, so I just thought I'd just start in 3 foot, see what's going around, but later on we'll have a little drop in 4 foot and you'll see we might get a lot more signs and indications. If the fish want to be further up, then they'll let you know, because you'll be getting signs, indications, a few missed bites, and that's when you can push up into your 3 foot rig. But to start with, oh, missed that bite. I just want to start it in 3 foot just to see. So holding that still, because it's so clear, you might get a bite on the drop like that. Drop him in there. That's why it's important to keep everything tight and still. If you just drop your rig straight in, you might have missed that little chance of trying to catch that fish. As where this time it's like gone in, you've got that chance of a fish going up, win there. The fish coming, following your bait down, seeing it, catching its eye, following it to the bottom, and you're picking it up. It's a sign there's a fish in my peg. Now patience is key with this. It's not like trying to go 100 miles an hour thinking you should be catching loads, just literally making the most of when they're feeding. So being nice and smooth, not feeding from a height, not feeding too much bait. Just putting small amounts of baits. Now the one thing with like commercials or snake lakes, the fish are not, obviously you have good pegs and bad pegs, but the fish are always in your peg somewhere. So like, there's a little dink. So what I mean by that is, say that you're on a good peg, they're going to be somewhere, they're going to be on that across line, they're going to be down the middle. So don't worry about having to chase them around, just try and find the right depth. And make sure you get a few signs and indications. Now if it was a cooler day, say we just had a frost, or it was freezing, it was low degrees, or then I'd probably look to start in 4 foot, just because I feel like I'm going to get more bites and consistent bites. But this is just a little burst to start. We might have to drop into 4 foot, then we can always drop back. That's the beauty of them shells. They don't have to, with maggots, say down the middle, you have to prime it. So to prime it up, keep feeding a few maggots, keep dripping it in all day, and then later on when the fish feed, they come off the shelf and into the deep water, they feed well there. But because the fish are on the shelf and that's where they're living, it's like you don't need to draw them out the houses, you're fishing in the house. So you can just literally put a little bit of bait in and just trick them ones onto the hook. Now what you might find is you might get a few bites like we have, and then it might go dead. So if you feel like there's nothing in your peg you need to draw, you can always put that little like pea-sized crush in again, see if that makes a difference. But one thing, you don't need a lot of bait with that crush. Like I said, 100 mils more than enough, because you're just going to be, it might be the odd time just to try and draw a few fish back in your peg, and then you're going to try and keep them there with maggots, and then if they drift back out again, you might have to draw them back in again with that. Now we've had a few signs and indications there, so I'm not going to leave it too long. Probably been about three and a half minutes, 4 minutes maybe now. So what I'm going to do, if in like a minute or so's time, I'll give it a chance. And if not, I'm just going to come back again. That was a little sign then. Going to come back, put 10 maggots back in, and then start again. Now maybe this is the thing, I've upped my feed twice and it's just took a little bit longer this time. Now maybe a coincidence, but that's the things you got to be looking for. It's how long it takes you to get a bite, how much bait you're putting in. Like I said, you're feeding where the fish are. You're not trying to draw them there, so you don't need to catapult. You don't need to feed a lot of bait. You don't need to give it time. You're fishing where the fish are, on that far bank, far side of the canal. You just got to try and trick a few fish and be in the area that they are at the time. So what I might do, a little wobble on the float then, so someone's around the area. This is the thing as well, with new stock fish, they're a bit crazy, they're a bit fly for your peg, they give you lots of signs and miss bites, and you do have foul looking on it. But when them bigger older fish come in your peg, it's a lot more slower, it's a lot more nice and steady. The fish come in, sneak in, pick your bait up, you catch them that way. But when it's some new stock fish, they are a bit mental, so you've got to bear that in mind. So what I'm going to do, not leave it too long now, I'm just going to come back. Oop, that's why I had a twig on. Get rid of the twig. Otherwise I won't get a bite, I'll lay on that. Right, what I'm going to do now, same again, just 2 maggots. Nicely hooked. Just pulled them off. Now I'm going to literally just tap about 10 maggots in. As I go out, just dump my pot, so it just gives me a bit of safety. That's the thing, you may just think, oh, it's just plonking a few maggots across, but there's a little bit to it. You got to think about your feeding, how you're putting your rig in, make sure everything's nice and consistent doing it. That's that there. Show us round. Hold that rig tight so if anything does take it on the drop, we're going to see it. There you go, straight away. So literally a little bit of bait falling through again. So that's where that other pot might be a little bit better. As it goes a little bit harder and you catch them early mugfish, that little bit of a pot of bait falling through all the time, which is classic for these little stocky fish, can be the way. It just catches their eye, they come straight in and nail you straight away. So it's all about changing it up, keeping it nice and steady. I'm putting a few fish in the net, so just one more little go. One thing ever so important, if your hook does start to go blunt, get it changed straight away. You can normally tell with maggots if you start blunting your hook up, especially with light elastic, you need the sharpest hook on at all times. So straight out to the mark, nice and steady. So they're very active today, there's a lot flying around everywhere. Pop my bait in, just push my pole back a little bit and then push, oh, the wind just messed up. I just pull it back so it's like coming in on an arc into that angle. It's like a 4 o'clock angle. Hold that tight on the mark. All the time. As that carbon stem works its magic, you can see where your bait is. So like now, I know my bait's on the bottom, so if I get a bite straight away, I know the fish will just follow it down, picking it up straight away. So there you go. That's a bigger one. A better one, but that's the perfect scenario, that one. Like literally 20-30 seconds. You can see I've had to double ship today just because of the bank behind me, so that elastic's helping me. Just doing its thing. I'm not worried about the fish flapping across the top. Just take my time. They're so vital, these fish, in the winter months, and to make the most of it. Now I'm going to see if I don't need to pull my puller kit on it. If I do, it's in the middle of the canal, and just pull one strip out, keep it nice and low. I'm just trying to glide him up, I'm not trying to pull him up, just trying to glide him, just nice and steady like that. Now that's a nice one. Hold him up. But that's what we're talking about. Nice big golden F1 on that. So what we'll do, we'll carry on fishing for a bit, see how it goes, and then we'll come back and I'll see how we're getting on. Right, so back fishing now. We've been fishing for a little while and the fishing's been good, we've been getting loads of bites, but it's just starting to slow up now and missing a few bites, and I feel like I'm having to wait for bites. So what I want to do is change my pot up and my feeding. So what I've done, I put the old Pentagon sprinkle lid on. What I'm going to do is just take it off, fill it half full with maggots, so I've got a bit of space to rattle them out. Put the lid back on. Now, one thing that I have noticed is my hook bait. Now, I've tried a few times with a single maggot and I feel like you just can't see it quick enough. So when I was putting, say, 15 to 20 maggots in, or 10 to 15 maggots in, it was taking a long time for the fish to find me bait. As where with this now, I've just put double maggot on. I'm going to cut down my feeding just to try and trick them on the hook. So I'm going to tap in, well, probably count to like 10. Lift out to the side a little bit. I'm just put my rig in a little bit different now. I'm not going to try and flick it in and lay it in because I don't feel like I'm trying to catch anything on the drop. I just want to get it on that position where the bait is as quick as I can. So I'm just dropping that down. Now I might get a quick response off this, I might get a few fish, but one thing I do want to do in a minute is just drop into that deeper water. So I've just, every time now and again, I've just sprinkled a few maggots in 4 foot. And I just feel like I may have spooked the fish a little bit, so the shoal's not as big as it was. I've caught a few of them and they're just spooky. So what I want to do is drop down into that 4 foot, a little bit extra water above their heads, a little bit deeper, and just see if we can carry on catching a few there. Now, one thing there, see that's a sign straight away. One thing there, I'm going to still pot 10 in and sit and wait. Oh, See, I've had this is where you can tell now. I've had a few missed bites. I've had the odd foul up fish, and that's when it's just a little bit unsettled and a little bit not as many fish in your peg as there was when we first started, where it was dead good. Don't forget, they get clever, they know what's going on. It thins them out, they get less fish in your peg, causes you a few problems. But say, in fishing now, if I feel like there's a sign indication, then so we've had a lot of indications but not many proper bites. So just thought, it might take some time just to cut the feed out. So I have 2 or 3 chucks on this, see if we can catch a couple. I'm going to drop in that 4-foot line, just because I feel like the fish might have just backed off down that shelf a little bit, just because I think we've caught a few of them. So I'm going to put my rig in there now. I'm going to tap some bait in again, sprinkle a few maggots in, make sure my bait's right in the middle of that. Now, one thing I do want to mention is having your pole roller level with your knees. So what I mean by this is when you're shipping out, it's not bouncing around, it's just gliding off your knees. And when I ship, there's one, see, you nick that one. So when I ship back now, I don't think it's foul up, but that's what we've been having, a few foul lookers. But ship back now, I've kept it nice and still on my knee, and then now it's on the roller, so I can keep it nice and still. My pole tip's not shaking around and wobbling. Like I said before, sometimes in winter they can be quite delicate hook holds, and the last thing you want to do is start wobbling your pole around and shaking it. As we just push it down your knee, take your time, nice and slow. Now this point now, just try and glide them up. Don't try and pull the heads off and pull your pulley kit. I don't need to on this fish. Just lift him up nice and slow. If it keeps going out deeper water, and I can always strip it out. So it's like now, I feel like, oh, it's coming up. Give it one strip, and then I've got the power now to lift him up. So when he comes up now, so just take your time with him. There you are. See, if I had a long kit on there, that fish would have come a little bit further out, and I've just got a little 2.5 metre monster handle, so I can just literally bang in the top lip. Look, perfect. So just that little change, a little bit of bait less bait going through the peg, and it's changed it up. So what I'm going to do now, just have one more chuck across, but I'm just going to put a single maggot on, so we might get a bite straight away because we're feeding a little bit less bait. But with a single maggot, I've had a lot of missed bites, and I just feel like they can't pinpoint it out. So there's a few maggots left in there still, so literally I'm just going to sprinkle a few in. When you're putting in like 6 to 8, you can just push them through the gaps. When you're trying to half fill it, oh, I had a perch on my top kit. When you so when you're trying to half fill it, interrupted then, literally put a new bait on, nice big fresh maggot. When you half fill it, I just take the lid off, but when I'm just putting a few in just to top and back up. So what I mean by now is, this is what I mean by your rollers being at the right point. So when I go ship out now, I'm pushing down on my leg, so my pole tip's nice and still. It's still on my roller, now my bait's not off, so it's giving a little bit of a wobble, but it's still just nice and still. Now, when you get to this point now, just take your time, turn the pot over, give it a rattle out, a rattle 10 in, just flick it to the sides ever so slightly, just hold him up, hold your flat of the water, so you see everything straight, and then just drop it down. Just speed it up a little bit. Just another way of putting your rig in. You're still coming onto that shelf, but you're not flicking it out all the time and trying to waste a bit of time. Just feel like I want to be on the bottom, try and nick a fish I can. Now some days single maggot might be better than double maggot, but today I feel like double's been the best hook bait, and it'd be my go-to just because it stands out a little bit. The fish are coming in, they were mooching around earlier, they were proper on the bait, and now they're just quite trickier to catch, but there's a sign. So you just get small signs of like maybe the fish picking up the maggots around your hook bait and maybe just taking the time to get to yours. Sometimes you might have a quick bite on one, sometimes it might take a little bit longer. But sometimes you might catch them crafty ones that just I've seen double maggot all the time. Ooh, there's a bite straight away. So that's actually a silverfish, I think. Is it? Maybe a skimmer. Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's a little, what was it? Little F1. Well, just skimmer, that one. So it's a nice quick bite. And we keep putting it in, but that's what I mean. We can just look. We've had a few missed bites. We've spent about 10-15 minutes missing some bites, not quite right. Changed to a single maggot, or single and double maggot. Just cut the feeding back with the sprinkle lid, made a little bit more noise, and the fishing's got a little bit better again now. So I'm not going to carry on fishing this line. I'm going to go on to the 14 or the 3-4 foot line, which is a bit shorter, but that's the thing that can happen now. You might be able to take that pot off and feed 10, and then you can change in all the day. Just because a pot's right at the time doesn't mean that the pot's right all day. So I'll just grab my other rig and get it before it falls in the lake. So this is my 4 foot line, so I just feel like the fish might have drifted off. Twig there. It's drifted off that shelf and just gone a little bit deeper. Now it's a little bit deeper, less water over the reds. More water over the reds, sorry. Getting mixed up now. So more confidence, hopefully we can just string a few fish together there. But on this one you might be thinking, well, how are you going to feed it? I don't want to start sprinkling because I've not been on it yet, so I've not upset the shoal, or I've not upset anything, so I'm literally going to feed about 10 or 12 maggots, dunk the pot again. Now the reason why I didn't dunk it on the sprinkle one is because I want to release them. Sometimes if you dunk them, it'd be quite hard to bounce out. And keep everything on the knee. So it's important, right? New line, so get to my mark, joints at the end of my pole, tap my bait in, nice and steady, don't whack your pole too hard. Lift the rig up, flick him to the side, hold him steady. Now you're on your money. Now what I want now is signs and indications, or a clean bite. I want someone to work with if I can. If I'm just going in and getting a clean bite, happy days, that's perfect, but it's not always like that. It can always chop and change. It can always, more fish come in the peg, less fish as you catch them. Oh, that was a bite then. If you get a bite, instead of just flicking out, you can just literally hold it still, wait for everything settles, lower it down. Now what you might find is, you might get signs and indications on this. Just because I'm saying, oh, I'm going to drop into that because I think that, doesn't mean it's going to happen. So if I miss a load of bites and I keep foul looking them and I can't get it right, then the fish want to be in really, really shallow water. So I'm going to have to go back on that across line, that 3 foot line, right across them reeds, and just try and make the most of it and work it. But it's bite straight away then. So don't be wrong, we are going to get a lot of bites today. It is a lot warmer than it has been in the past few months, but it's all about just working your lines, keeping ticking over. Now just because I've fished one line doesn't mean you can just have a few lines on the go. You could have one to the right, one to the left. That's really good on cold days. Just sprinkle like 5 or 6 in, go on the other line. That's a bit bigger F1. So it just shows sometimes them bigger fish, just because you naturally think, oh, far bank. You think far bank, the fish will be over there. Oh, there you go. When naturally they just want to be where they're at their happiest. So it's a nice F1. Well, just over £1, £1.25. So simple lines. So like, if it's really good fishing, you can get away with fishing like we are today with a couple of lines. That's really it. But if, like I said, if it's really difficult, you could have like 2 lines in 4 foot, just tapping in like 10 maggots. And sometimes don't like bait going in over their head, so you can tap 10 in on one line, go and fish the other one, catch your fish, tap 10 in, catch the other fish. It's all about working your lines and trying to get the most. A lot of it's looking at the weather. That's the big thing with F1 fishing. If you look at the weather, see what the weights are, that's normally a telltale sign what you're going to need to be sort of doing. Say if the weights are like 60 to 80 pounds, you're not going to be catching them kindering on 2 lines. You're going to be catching like we are today. The fish are feeding. But if it's like 20 to 40 pound, which it can be when it goes a lot cooler, then that might be the way to catch them. So you've got all them. I've showed you a few tips to get that in your armoury. Hopefully you can carry on catching a few. I don't want to spread it out too much. Drop it in there. There goes a bite straight away as the rig's settled there. So this is a telltale sign that the fish are in the peg, because I've had that literally as soon as the rig has like hit the bottom. My float's gone cocked like it should have done, and it's just gone dump and just following it down. So that shows me the fish are happy in that depth. It's what we had at the start on that other line, when we started on that other line. Rubbish on my line. When we started catching them, they literally were like this, loads of fish in the peg. We're getting loads of signs, being dead responsive, but as the day's gone on, I feel like they might have just drifted down. Not been as confident because you caught a few, so you're just literally chopping and changing and chasing them around. So we'll have one more and we'll call it a day. We've had a brilliant day here at Tunnel. So again, 10 to 15 maggots, dunk 'em. Just trying to keep everything still. Put the pole together. Push it down on my knee so it's nice and steady when I'm going out. Nice, and just make sure you get that bait in that spot so it's like right in line with a marker. Bang on the money. There we go. Tap the bait in. Hold the rig out. Lay him in. So that's arcing over now. So that's a bite on the indication on the way down then. Now say if I had a 4x10 on there, it's going to take a little bit longer to get down. So when the fishing's good, I want a heavier rig. So 4x12 is perfect for today. But say like if it's a lot clearer, the venue you go to is a lot clearer than this, then you might need a lighter float and a bit longer line. But because we're naturally naturally fishing on that shelf where the fish want to be, I can get away with a bit shorter lash than normal in that deeper water. But the fishing's good today. If it was a lot harder, I might want a bit of a longer line between pole tip and my float. Might want a lighter rig to try and catch them wary fish as the rig settles. But today, getting loads of bite. It's been good fishing. Still tricky to catch, change it up a few times, different depths. So I'm getting a lot of signs again now, so I need to start thinking about my feeding, but having that one last shot, try and get one for you. Make sure I'm on that shelf, make sure I'm in line with marker here. That's in line, I'm holding on so I know. The wind's just pushing me through now. Like I said before, if I had a 4x10 on that, I'd just be trying to skip through and push me around. But I've just got the security of that 4x12. Nice and stable. There you go. Nailed one. So I'm on the roller now, so. Shit back. Nice little stocky to end on. So loads of bites on that far shelf. A few tips and tricks for you to try and get the best you can. It's a little stocky F1. Ghosty F1. Lovely one. But look at that. So you can apply that into your fishing, get out this winter and get in the cold, but get loads of bites.